Has being an artist always been your main focus?
Yeah. Yeah, like since, even though I had no idea what was, didn't really understand what would mean to be an artist, but yeah, it's something that I think that I just, there was a moment when I was a teenager that I would say I just got stung by some kind of bug that, metaphorically speaking, that just made me feel like, yeah, that's it. But I didn't know what it was. I studied in high school. I was doing science, or the technical, we call it bachillerato in Spanish. It's like the 2 previous years before university that you kind of specialize a little bit more depending on what kind of studies you want to do. Like if it's more artistic, more humanities, more technological or scientific or biology, things like that. They are like, you can choose a little bit more your path. And I think that, maybe because of suggestions from family or thinking that maybe I could also study architecture, classic advice when you say, I want to study art, and then...
Like, I like to draw, become an architect.
Yeah, so because if you don't... if there's not examples of artists in the family, I understand that it sounds a little bit abstract, like, okay, but what is that really, or what are you going to do with that? And maybe that was before the... Yeah, where I was somehow like in between those two options.
So scientist or architect?
Yeah, or scientist, I was like, were more like architecture, something more technical, and though I was studying, or then art.
Oh, yeah.
But then I didn't have any kind of example of like, okay, but what is to do art? But then I just to me, just felt like the right thing to do. So I got stubborn and then studied art. And
how did they take it in your family?
They took it well, but but I have a funny story. This sounds more funny in Spanish, but I'm gonna like make the translation. Okay, so because this is how it went. I started painting in the summers because of one of my cousins, my cousin Almudena, that she had that hobby, and then I was 13, and then I went for a week to her home. I was like, I don't know, but come and as this holiday, let's paint a little bit so that you see like what I'm doing. And then I got like really hooked just by what we were doing. And then I was like, I just want to do this. I just want to do this. But 13 years old, very young, many years still like to come. But then I would do that like as a hobby, like every summer. And then really like we would travel to the south from Madrid, that is 4 or 5 hours by car, and then I would travel with all the art supplies, and then I would even have like fresh paintings the day before traveling back, and then my father would be like really like, do you really need to like have the Picassos? He would call them like that, like wet, like where am I gonna put them? Like while we have to drive all the way back to Madrid, because I would just like push it till the very end. And then before having to choose, because there was an entrance exam for fine arts, but I didn't prepare for that with a lot of time because I was maybe thinking of doing architecture. So I remember that there was one night that I was in my bed reading a book about women artists. It was the Taschen. It's a very small one, but that I had bought like at the Prado Museum. I remember going with my mother, and then I just was looking at the book and then going through the artist, and then my father was sleeping, my mother was still awake, and I went to the bed, and my father was there, and then I said like, Dad, I was crying, and I was like, I want to study art. I don't want to do architecture. I want to be an artist. And then my father was in the bed, and then he said like, but dear, what is that? Not that he doesn't know what is to be, what an artist is, but like, what do you mean by that, like as a profession? And then I was just like crying and said like, I don't know, but this is what I feel I have to do. And that's how it all started.